My wife walked out on me last Tuesday and honestly, best decision she ever made for both of us. She stood there in our living room, suitcase already packed, telling me I was too boring for her exciting new life. Apparently, being a reliable husband who paid the bills and came home every night wasn't thrilling enough anymore. I need someone who actually lives life, she said, like she was reading from some self-help book. Someone who takes risks and makes me feel alive. I was sitting on the couch, remote in hand, watching her dramatic performance. So you found him already? Her face went red. This isn't about anyone else, right? That's why you're leaving with a packed bag and makeup done like you're heading to a date. I clicked off the TV and looked at her directly. Just say it. You're trading me in for someone you think is better. She got defensive, started talking about how we'd grown apart, how she needed space to find herself. All the usual lines people use when they've already found someone else, but don't want to look like the bad guy. You know what? I stood up and walked to the desk drawer. Let's make this easy for everyone. I pulled out my phone and called my lawyer right there in front of her. Hey, it's me. Yeah, I need those divorce papers drawn up. Tonight, if possible. Her mouth dropped. You're not even going to fight for us. I laughed. Actually laughed. Fight for what? A woman who just told me I'm too boring for her? That would be pretty pathetic, don't you think? She expected tears, begging, maybe some dramatic speech about working things out. Instead, she got a man who wasn't about to chase someone who clearly didn't want to be caught. My lawyer delivered the papers Wednesday morning. By Wednesday afternoon, she'd signed them. No hesitation, no second thoughts. Just her signature and a comment about how mature we were being about the whole thing. That same day, I called the landlord. I'm breaking the lease early. Yes, I'll pay the penalty. When can I be out? See, while she was packing her bags to move in with Mr. Exciting, I was doing math. Without her spa treatments, designer coffee addiction, and shopping therapy sessions, I was looking at an extra $1,500 a month. Minimum. Suddenly, that lease penalty didn't seem so bad. By Friday, I'd found a place 3 blocks from my office. 2-bedroom house with a garage, hardwood floors, and rent that was actually lower than what we'd been paying for our cramped apartment. The irony wasn't lost on me. Losing my wife was literally the best financial decision I'd made in years. The weekend she moved in with her new boyfriend, I was loading my stuff into the new place. No forwarding address left behind. No heads up to mutual friends. Clean break, just like she wanted. Monday morning, I drove to work in 12 minutes instead of 45. Tuesday, I grabbed lunch at that place down the street I'd always wanted to try, but she said was too greasy. Wednesday, I bought a new sound system for the living room without anyone complaining about the expense. By Thursday, I realized something that probably should have occurred to me years ago. I wasn't the boring one in this marriage. I was just the one paying for someone else's entertainment. My phone buzzed with messages from her friends, asking if I was okay and if there was anything they could do. I deleted them without responding. If she wanted to paint me as the tragic abandoned husband, that was her business. I had better things to do than manage her narrative. The funniest part? She'd left thinking she was punishing me, teaching me some lesson about appreciating what I had. Instead, she'd freed me from a relationship where I was apparently nothing more than a boring ATM with a steady job. 2 weeks into my new life, I was sleeping better, eating what I wanted, and coming home to a house that stayed clean. No drama, no walking on eggshells, no constant complaints about how I wasn't spontaneous enough. I blocked her number, blocked her social media, blocked her email. Not out of anger, but out of practicality. Whatever consequences came from her choices were hers to deal with. I wasn't interested in updates, explanations, or apologies. She wanted excitement. She could have it. Me? I was perfectly content being boring in my new house, with my shorter commute and my significantly improved bank balance. Turns out, being too boring for someone who thinks the grass is always greener is actually a compliment. It just took her leaving for me to figure that out. 3 weeks into my new life, and I was starting to understand what financial freedom actually felt like. No more $100 Target runs that somehow turned into $300. No more subscription services I didn't use, but she absolutely needed. No more splitting dinner checks with her friends while I sat there listening to them complain about their own husbands. The house was everything that cramped apartment wasn't. Kitchen island where I could actually cook without bumping into someone. Garage where I could park without playing Tetris with her collection of Amazon packages. Most importantly, a home office where I could work in peace without constant interruptions about her daily drama. I bought a decent coffee maker The kind she always said was unnecessary because Starbucks existed. Turns out, making coffee at home saves about $40 a week. Who knew? Well, probably everyone except someone who thought $5 lattes were a basic human right. My routine was simple. Up at 6, coffee and breakfast at home, 12-minute drive to work. Lunch at whatever place looked good, not just the salad spots she insisted were healthier for both of us. Back home by 5:30, no traffic headaches, no detours to pick up her latest emergency purchase. The silence was incredible. No reality TV drama in the background, no phone calls to her mother discussing every detail of our relationship, no constant commentary about what the neighbors were doing wrong with their landscaping. I'd blocked her on everything: phone, email, Instagram, Facebook, even LinkedIn, because knowing her, she'd probably try that too. Not because I was hurt, but because I genuinely didn't care what happened next in her adventure. She'd made her choice, signed the papers without hesitation, and moved on. So had I. But apparently, the universe has a sense of humor about these things. My friend from work mentioned running into her at the grocery store. She asked about you, he said, like it was casual conversation. Wanted to know how you were doing, if you'd said anything about her. What did you tell her? That you seemed fine. What? I shrugged. Just curious. But it wasn't just him. Over the next few days, 3 different people mentioned similar encounters. Her asking questions, fishing for information, trying to figure out how I was handling the divorce. Each time, I gave the same response. I'm doing fine. Because I was. Better than fine, actually. My bank account was healthier, my stress levels were down, and I was rediscovering hobbies I'd forgotten about. Like reading books instead of listening to her dissect every episode of whatever reality show was currently ruining her ability to have realistic expectations about life. The really telling part was how quickly her questions shifted from general concern to specific details. Not just, how is he doing, but has he mentioned me, and does he seem upset? And my personal favorite, has he been dating anyone? I found out about that last one when my neighbor from the old place called. We'd been friendly enough, used to chat about sports when I was taking out the trash. Hey, your ex came by looking for you, he said. Seemed surprised you'd moved out. What did you tell her? That you were gone, lease was up. She kept asking where you went, like I was supposed to know. Got pretty insistent about it too. That was interesting. She'd signed those divorce papers like she couldn't wait to be done with our marriage. But now she was tracking down my old neighbors? Either her new relationship wasn't going as planned, or she was having some serious second thoughts about her choices. Either way, it wasn't my problem anymore. I thanked him for the heads up and went back to assembling my new entertainment center. The one I'd ordered without asking permission, paid for without justifying the expense, and set up exactly where I wanted it in my living room. The best part about being too boring? Boring people don't create unnecessary drama. They don't make impulsive decisions they can't undo. They don't burn bridges and then wonder why they can't find their way back. She wanted excitement, the kind that comes with uncertainty, instability, and apparently some serious buyer's remorse. She could keep it. I was perfectly happy with my predictable routine, my comfortable house, and my drama-free evenings. But something told me this was just the beginning of her attempts to figure out what I was up to. Good thing I'd learned a long time ago that the best way to handle unwanted attention is to make yourself completely unavailable for it. 6 weeks after the divorce papers were signed, I got a call that explained everything. My old neighbor again, and this time he sounded genuinely concerned. Your ex showed up again, he said. But man, she looked rough. Really rough. Was asking if I had your new address, your phone number, anything. When I said no, she actually started crying right there on my doorstep. That was unexpected. The woman who'd walked out with her head held high, talking about living life to the fullest, was now crying at strangers' doors trying to track me down. Did she say what she wanted? Just kept saying she needed to talk to you, that it was important. I felt bad for her, but I didn't have anything to give her anyway. After I hung up, I started piecing together some things I'd been hearing through the grapevine. Apparently, Mr. Exciting had turned out to be significantly less exciting than advertised. More like Mr. Unemployed with a gambling problem. My buddy at work had heard it from his girlfriend, who heard it from her friend, who apparently knew the whole story. The guy she'd left me for? Turned out he was between jobs, between apartments, and between several other women. Classic player move. Tell each one exactly what they want to hear until you get what you need. According to the gossip chain, he'd convinced her to invest in some cryptocurrency scheme. Her savings, the money from selling her car, even cash advances from her credit cards. all gone within 3 weeks. Then he'd moved on to his next target, leaving her broke and homeless. But here's the thing that really got me. She hadn't just lost money. She'd lost her entire support system. See, when you loudly announce that your boring husband isn't good enough for your exciting new life, and then move in with someone else immediately, people remember that. When it all falls apart, those same people aren't exactly rushing to help. Her friends were apparently giving her the "I told you so" treatment instead of opening their couches. Her family was being supportive but distant, the kind of support that comes with a lot of judgment attached. And her new boyfriend? Gone like he'd never existed, along with every penny she'd given him. The irony was thick enough to cut with a knife. She'd called me boring because I was careful with money, because I didn't take stupid risks, because I planned for the future instead of living in the moment. Those exact qualities she'd mocked were the ones that could have protected her from this mess. But that wasn't my problem anymore. I'd blocked her for a reason, and that reason was becoming clearer every day. Some people create their own problems and then expect others to fix them. I'd spent years being her safety net, and where had that gotten me? Divorce papers and a lecture about being too predictable. My phone started buzzing with unknown numbers. Calls I didn't answer, voicemails I deleted without listening to. If she was trying to reach me, she was going to have to try harder than borrowing phones from friends. The really pathetic part was how predictable this whole situation was. Anyone with half a brain could have seen this coming. Guy with no job, no permanent address, and smooth talk about easy money? That's not a boyfriend, that's a con artist. But she'd been so focused on proving that I wasn't good enough for her that she'd ignored every red flag in the book. I was putting together a bookshelf when my phone rang with a number I actually recognized. My lawyer. "Just wanted to give you a heads up," he said. "Your ex called my office asking about reopening the divorce proceedings. Apparently wants to discuss property division again." I laughed. "What property?" She took what she wanted and signed papers saying she was satisfied with the arrangement. That's what I told her. But she seemed to think there might be some kind of mistake, that maybe she'd signed too quickly. No mistake. She knew exactly what she was doing. That's what I figured. Just thought you should know she's fishing around for legal options. After I hung up, the picture became even clearer. She wasn't just broke and homeless. She was desperate enough to try legal manipulation to get back into my finances. The woman who'd walked away without a backward glance was now trying to find loopholes in the divorce she'd insisted on. But she'd signed those papers with the same confidence she'd used to tell me I was too boring for her exciting future. No coercion, no pressure, just her signature and her certainty that she was trading up. Now that her trade had turned into a complete disaster, she wanted a do-over. Like life was some kind of video game where you could restart from a checkpoint when you made a bad choice. That's not how consequences work. That's not how adult decisions work. And that's definitely not how I work. She'd made her bed with Mr. Exciting. Now she could figure out where to sleep. 2 months after she'd walked out, my phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. I almost deleted it without reading, but something made me look. "I know you probably don't want to hear from me, but I really need to talk. Can we please just have one conversation? I made some mistakes and I think we both deserve closure." Closure. That was rich. She'd gotten her closure when she signed divorce papers without hesitation. I'd gotten mine when I realized how much better my life was without her constant drama and financial drain. But you know what? After 2 months of peace, quiet, and actual prosperity, I was feeling generous enough to give her exactly the closure she was asking for. I typed back, "Congratulations, you've officially joined the statistics of wives who regret leaving their boring husbands." Then I blocked the number. Because here's what she didn't understand. Closure isn't a conversation. It's not some heart-to-heart where both people get to explain their feelings and walk away feeling better. Closure is accepting that some decisions can't be undone, some bridges can't be rebuilt, and some mistakes have permanent consequences. She'd had her chance to think things through before she left. She'd had her chance to consider the consequences before she signed those papers. She'd had her chance to appreciate what she had before she decided it wasn't good enough. Now she wanted another chance? A do-over? Some kind of negotiation where she could explain how her poor judgment was somehow my fault too? Not happening. I was actually dating someone new by then. Nothing serious yet, but definitely someone who appreciated stability over chaos, responsibility over recklessness. Someone who thought my careful approach to money was attractive rather than boring. who liked coming home to a clean house, and a partner who wasn't constantly creating problems to solve. The contrast was incredible. Where my ex had seen boring routine, this woman saw reliability. Where my ex had seen lack of spontaneity, she saw thoughtful planning. Where my ex had seen financial caution, she saw wisdom and security. It was like discovering that I wasn't the problem in my marriage after all. I was just married to someone who confused drama with excitement and chaos with adventure. My phone buzzed again a few hours later. Different number, same desperate energy. Please don't block me again. I know I hurt you, and I know I made terrible choices. But I'm in real trouble and I don't know who else to turn to. Can't we at least talk about this like adults? This time I didn't even respond. Just blocked the number and went back to making dinner. Real dinner, not whatever overpriced takeout she would have insisted on because she was too tired to cook after spending the day shopping for things we couldn't afford. The pattern continued over the next few days. Different numbers, same basic message. Apologies mixed with justifications, regret mixed with subtle attempts to make me feel guilty for not responding. Classic manipulation tactics from someone who was finally facing the consequences of her own choices. But I'd learned something important during our marriage. You can't reason with someone who's fundamentally unreasonable. You can't fix someone who doesn't think they're broken. And you definitely can't help someone who only wants your help after they've exhausted every other option. She'd burned this bridge when she walked out calling me boring. She'd salted the earth when she signed those divorce papers without a second thought. She'd made it clear that I wasn't worth fighting for, that our marriage wasn't worth saving, that her exciting new life was worth more than our shared history. Now that her exciting new life had turned into a complete disaster, she wanted to crawl back. She wanted sympathy from the same man she'd humiliated. She wanted help from the same person she'd dismissed as too predictable for her adventurous spirit. The audacity was almost impressive. I poured myself a glass of wine, sat down in my comfortable living room, in my affordable house, with my healthy bank account, and felt something I hadn't experienced in years of marriage: complete peace. No drama, no crisis, no emergency that required immediate attention and financial sacrifice. No emotional manipulation disguised as relationship communication. Just a quiet evening, a good meal, and the satisfaction of knowing that some problems really do solve themselves if you just refuse to participate in them. She wanted closure? She'd gotten it. She just didn't like what it looked like. 2 days after I'd sent that message about statistics, I was pulling into my driveway after work when I noticed someone sitting on the curb across the street. At first glance, just looked like someone waiting for a ride. But when I got out of my car, she stood up. It took me a second to recognize her. 2 months ago, she'd walked out looking like she was heading to a photo shoot. Hair done, makeup perfect, outfit that probably cost more than my monthly utilities. The woman standing across from my house looked like she'd been sleeping in her car for a week. She'd clearly been following me home from work, which was both pathetic and slightly concerning. But what struck me most was how completely she'd fallen apart. This wasn't just someone having a bad day. This was someone whose entire life had imploded. I went inside without acknowledging her. She wanted to play stalker games? Fine. But she was going to have to work a lot harder than camping out on public property if she thought she was going to guilt me into a conversation. 20 minutes later, she knocked on my door. I was in the kitchen making dinner when I heard it. Tentative at first, then more insistent. I ignored it and kept cooking. The knocking continued, got more desperate, turned into outright pounding. Then I heard a voice I didn't recognize answer the door. "I'm sorry, but I don't have any food or money to spare right now." My girlfriend had arrived while I was in the kitchen and answered the door before I could stop her. She'd taken one look at my ex-wife and assumed she was homeless, which honestly wasn't that far from the truth. I walked to the front door and saw them both standing there. My girlfriend looking embarrassed about turning away someone she thought was in need, and my ex-wife looking absolutely mortified at being mistaken for a panhandler. "Actually," I said, stepping into view, "that's not a homeless person. That's my ex-wife." The silence was deafening. My girlfriend's eyes went wide as she processed what she'd just done. My ex-wife's face went through about 5 different shades of red as the humiliation hit her. "Oh my God," my girlfriend whispered. "I'm so sorry, I didn't know." "Don't apologize," I told her. Easy mistake to make. And it really was. The woman standing on my doorstep looked nothing like the wife who'd left me for a more exciting life. Her clothes were wrinkled and ill-fitting, probably borrowed or from a thrift store. Her hair was greasy and pulled back in a messy ponytail. She'd lost weight, but not in a healthy way. She looked like someone who'd been surviving on fast food and stress for weeks. "Can we please just talk?" she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "We are talking. You asked to talk, and now I'm telling you that you look absolutely terrible." "Wow. I mean, I knew things went south with your boyfriend, but I didn't realize they went this far south." My girlfriend squeezed my arm gently, probably thinking I was being too harsh. But she didn't know the full story. She didn't know about the humiliating speech about being too boring, the immediate move-in with another man, the quick signature on divorce papers. "Look," I continued, "I don't know what you expected to accomplish by following me home from work, but whatever conversation you think we need to have already happened. You made your choice, you signed the papers, you moved on. The fact that it didn't work out the way you planned isn't really my problem to solve." "I know I made mistakes," she started, but I cut her off. "Mistakes? You didn't accidentally leave your husband for a con artist. You didn't accidentally give him all your money. You didn't accidentally burn every bridge you had because you were so convinced you were trading up. Those weren't mistakes, those were choices. Adult choices with adult consequences." She started crying then, which honestly just made the whole situation more uncomfortable for everyone involved. My girlfriend was looking back and forth between us like she'd walked into the middle of a movie and missed the first hour. "I don't have anywhere else to go," she sobbed. "Have you tried church?" I asked. "I hear they're pretty good with people who need to figure out how to start over. Might be worth a shot." The cruelty of it wasn't lost on me, but neither was the justice. She'd spent our entire marriage mocking my practical approach to life, my boring stability, my predictable reliability. Now she was discovering what life looked like without those things, and suddenly they didn't seem so boring anymore. "Please," she whispered, "I know I hurt you, but can't you at least help me figure out what to do next?" "What to do next?" I stepped closer to the doorway. "Here's what you do next. You accept that some decisions can't be undone. You stop showing up at my house. You stop trying to contact me. You figure out how to rebuild your life without expecting the man you divorced to be part of the solution." I paused, making sure she was really listening. "And if you don't stop harassing me, I'll be making some calls to people who handle that kind of thing professionally. Are we clear?" She stood there for a moment, tears streaming down her face, probably expecting some last-minute change of heart. Some movie moment where I'd suddenly remember the good times and invite her in to work things out. But this wasn't a movie, and I wasn't the same man she'd left behind. "You don't understand," she said, desperation making her voice crack. "He took everything. My savings, my car payment money, even the security deposit for an apartment. I trusted him, and he completely destroyed my life. And I'm supposed to care about this because..." My girlfriend squeezed my arm again, harder this time. I could tell she was uncomfortable with how cold I was being, but she also didn't know what I knew. She didn't know that this same woman had called me boring, predictable, and insufficient. She didn't know about the speech about needing someone who actually lived life. "Because we were married for 5 years, my ex said. Because that has to count for something." It did count for something. It counted enough for you to walk away from it without a second thought. It counted enough for you to sign divorce papers the same week I filed them. It counted enough for you to move in with another man immediately and tell everyone who'd listen how much happier you were. I could see my girlfriend processing this information, her expression shifting from sympathy to understanding. She was starting to get the picture. "But I was wrong," my ex whispered. "I made a terrible mistake. I thought I wanted excitement and adventure, but what I actually needed was stability and security. What I had with you. What you had with me was a husband who paid the bills, came home every night, and tried to build a future together. You decided that wasn't enough. You decided I wasn't enough. You traded all of that for excitement and adventure. How did that work out for you?" The question hung in the air like a challenge. She knew exactly how it had worked out. She was living proof of how it had worked out. "I know you're angry," she started. "I'm not angry. Angry would imply I still have emotional investment in your situation. What I am is done. Completely, permanently done with being your backup plan, your safety net, or your solution to problems you created for yourself." My girlfriend stepped slightly behind me, sensing this was about to get more intense. "You want to know what the statistics say about wives who leave their husbands for someone else?" I continued. 73% of them regret it within the first year. 68% end up financially worse off than they were before. And here's my personal favorite. 81% of second relationships that start as affairs or immediately after divorce fail within 2 years. Her face went pale. How do you know all that? Because unlike some people, I actually research things before I make life-changing decisions. I looked up all these numbers after you left, just out of curiosity. Turns out, you're incredibly predictable, just not in the way you used to complain about. The irony was perfect. She'd left me for being too predictable, only to become a statistic herself. The most predictable outcome possible for someone who confused drama with excitement. So congratulations, I said, stepping back toward my door. You've officially joined the ranks of wives who thought the grass was greener, only to discover they'd burned down their own lawn. You're not special. You're not unique. You're just another cautionary tale about what happens when you mistake stability for boredom. Please, she said one last time, can't we at least try to be friends? Can't you at least give me some advice about how to start over? I looked at her for a long moment, really looked at her, saw the desperation, the regret, the complete devastation of someone who'd gambled everything and lost. Here's my advice, I said finally. Learn to live with the consequences of your choices. Figure out how to rebuild your life without expecting the people you hurt to help you do it. And next time you have something good, don't throw it away because you think you deserve better. I put my arm around my girlfriend's waist. Now, if you'll excuse us, we're going to have dinner. In my house. That I can afford because I'm not supporting someone who thinks my money is boring, but my stability is essential. I started to close the door, then paused. Oh, and if you show up here again, or try to contact me again, or follow me from work again, I'll be filing a restraining order. Not because I'm scared of you, but because harassment is illegal and I've got better things to do than deal with your buyer's remorse. I closed the door and locked it. Through the window, I watched her stand there for another minute before finally walking away, shoulders slumped in defeat. My girlfriend looked at me with a mixture of admiration and concern. That was intense. That was necessary, I said. Some people only learn when they hit rock bottom. And some people need to stay at rock bottom long enough to figure out how they got there. She nodded slowly. Think she'll leave you alone now. I think she finally understands that some bridges, once burned, don't get rebuilt. No matter how much you regret lighting the match. We went to the kitchen and finished making dinner. No drama, no crisis, no emergency requiring immediate attention. Just two adults sharing a meal and planning their evening. Outside, my ex-wife drove away in whatever car she'd managed to borrow or afford. Inside, I was having dinner with someone who appreciated the life I'd built instead of resenting it. The difference was remarkable and permanent.